So for the whole period of time, the purchasers who had bought it years prior to us getting involved thought that they owned this property when they owned another one.
So they were living in the wrong
legally,
property?
they were renting it, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for coming today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Great to see you.
Nicole's from Conveyancing, and she is an awesome conveyancer in Melbourne, so we've got some questions for her today.
Yeah.
So the first one that I wanted to ask you is, what do conveyancers do? Because a lot of first home buyers aren't aware of, they've never needed a conveyancer. So what do you do for clients?
In a nutshell, it's the legal process of buying and selling real estate and transferring the title deeds from the seller to the purchaser. And then you do, at a more detailed level, checks and balances along the way, making sure that the purchaser doesn't inherit any of the debts and taxes and certain charges on the land that might run with the land and not stay with the previous vendor, like a utilities bill would, for example. That stays with the previous owner and doesn't get passed over to a purchaser. But there are other charges and things like that, and that's the detail of the conveyancing. But essentially it's transferring titles from one person to the next.
Yeah, and so you would be going through the process of purchasing a property with the customer from when they get the contract, or when do you step in for the client?
Ideally, we would step into or be included or contacted prior to someone buying a property. And when I say buying, I mean signing a contract or submitting an offer, starting those negotiations. There are a few things that, a few gotcha clauses or issues that we'd be pointing out to you before it gets too late and we can't undo or unravel those things. So ideally, you'd have engagement with your conveyancer or legal representative after you've spoken with your finance broker, of course, and you know how much money you can borrow, but before you start sort of really submitting an offer. Once you've found a property, you'd want to be talking to someone then. Check the physical location of everything. And if I go back many, many, many years, I remember a situation where a property in Footscray, block of flats, had, they were buying, let's say it was called Unit 3. But on the title, it was Lot 2. And so Unit 3 doesn't always mean that translates to the corresponding lot number.
Yeah.
And the number on the door, when they did a full refurbishment and then strated the titles and then sold them off individually, the lot number was put on not on the corresponding unit number. So for the whole period of time, the purchasers who had bought it years prior to us getting involved thought that they owned this property when they owned another one.
So they were living in the wrong
legally,
property?
they were renting it, yeah.
Oh my goodness. And so everyone like that...
It was a mess.
Oh my goodness.
And those sort of errors are not easy to fix.
Yeah.
But when someone learns of this information, they're already in a heightened state of anxiety and stress because it's very, very expensive to fix contract and title mistakes. Really expensive after the event.
Yeah, because you would be able to find some of the clauses out there that could negatively impact a client enjoying the property, that they wouldn't know. Sometimes I'm sure that they think that they've got a car space, but it's not actually
there. Missing car space. There's a few of those.
Yeah, so you'd be able to make sure that what the client is expecting to purchase is what they're going to get at the end of the day as well.
And that's a classic example of things that, a car space that doesn't exist and they think that it does, but they're not quite sure where it is. So when we look at a contract, the first thing we do is we understand who our client is, get into their world, ask them a set of questions, maybe 6 or 7 questions. It's not too intrusive, but it gets us allows us to understand who they are as a client, and then we can tailor the advice to suit their circumstances. And when they're a first home buyer, the advice that we provide is different to, say, an investor. But if we go and have a look at the agent's website and it says one car space, one storage cage, well, we'll go looking in the contract in the section 32 for those details, and make sure that you as the client are aware that the physical location of those lots is just as important as knowing that there is a title, a car park on title. Because often people might have a casual arrangement, say, oh look, my car's bigger, let me just use your car park and you can use my car park. And so you think that you're getting the bigger car space, and that's happened before. We've seen situations like that.
Yeah, where they get tricked out and then, you know, it's not even useful for them.
Yeah, there's just a private arrangement of two owners just sharing and swapping a car space.
Yeah.
And then that hasn't been translated through to a, because it might be a tenant, for example, that's made that arrangement. So the vendor who's selling has no idea.
Do you just work within Melbourne? Do you work within Australia wide? What's your specialty for record conveyancing?
So we're statewide only, and all conveyancers in Victoria are licensed within the Victorian jurisdiction. And each state and territory has its own licensing regime when it comes to conveyancing.
Beautiful.
Pretty much anything that is residential, commercial, industrial, trusts. We deal with a lot of self-managed super funds as well, purchasing property.
It sounds like you've kind of worked with so many different clients on so many different, you know, contracts and things. Everyone's got their favourite, you know, stories to tell, but I want to know, what's the best horror story you've had personally over the years?
Catherine, there are so many. How much time do we have?
I know.
And will the camera roll run out? Okay. The worst horror story that I've had is a purchaser bought an off the plan. But I had one client who bought an investment in South Yarra from a developer, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. It was listed, priced at $800,000. This is a really long time ago. This is this would be close to 12 years ago.
Okay.
And that was $800,000 back then.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
A lot.
And the developer decided before settlement to reconfigure the floor plan, remove a bathroom, and put the study nook, which was behind the door, in the master bedroom, and let it run into the end of that bedroom, which ran into the lounge room. So it was kind of blocked, shortening the lounge room depth as well. A really hideous configuration that if you knew that at the start and you saw the floor plan, you wouldn't buy it because it's unusable space.
Yeah.
So that's a breach of contract. Our client had to fight that, not on principle, but because what had happened is in that 2 years since he bought, he had lost his job. So he couldn't get finance.
Yeah.
And he told the developers, rental agents that. So everyone was now aware that he couldn't settle. So our argument was diminished because, like, well, what are you going to do? Sue us? And so we wrote to them and said breach of contract on the following basis. And the developer was permitted to reconfigure floor plans.
Within the contract?
Yeah, but not where there's a material change. And removing a bathroom is a material change because it devalues the property.
Yeah, and it's not just a little change. That's, you know, was there at least one other bathroom in the property, or now everyone?
One bathroom.
Was that the ensuite?
No, that was the shared one.
Okay.
So the ensuite was removed and the study nook was taken from behind the door and put into the space where the bathroom would have been. So our client had no choice but to pursue the vendor legally. So we engaged some really good lawyers. We had to go to court. My client had a mini hearing at the Supreme Court. Cost him $20,000 to step foot into the courtroom. And after 3 hours, it was determined by the judge that they could be released from the contract and he would get his $80,000 deposit back.
Good.
Which was great.
Amazing.
But he had to pay they had to pay their own costs. So he had to pay his $20,000. So he was $20,000 out of pocket, but he got $60,000 back and he got released from the contract. So that's probably one of the worst horror stories.
Yeah.
We've had I had another one where a house burnt down before settlement.